Backlight is the podcast that takes you behind the scenes of today's most ambitious investigations and asks what public interest journalism needs to look like tomorrow. It's a place to learn how investigations work and where we have candid conversations on how to combat some of journalism's biggest challenges.
Hi, iMEdD conference goers. We're your Backlight hosts, Tessa and Beatriz from Silva.
For the past year on Backlight, we've been bringing voices from across the journalism world to talk about everything, from investigating AI to working with content creators, using cutting-edge methodologies, and making sure our work reaches those most affected by our stories.
Basically, Backlight is your year-round journalism conference, free of charge. We've put together a reel of highlights from episodes on our latest season. If you enjoyed them, you can find all the episodes on lighthousereports.com/backlight or wherever you get your podcasts.
And both Tessa and I are actually at the conference, so please come up and say hi. We'd love to hear what you think. And if you have suggestions on who we should talk to in our upcoming season, do reach out.
Earlier this year, we talked to 3 news content creators, Johanna Rudiger, Adam Cole, and Johnny Harris, about how journalists can learn from how they reach and gain the trusts of millions of people. Have a listen.
Because ultimately, no matter how many facts and data and empirical evidence we uncover, if no one consumes them or very few people consume them, then what do we do it for? Because ultimately what I'm after is understanding. I want people to deeply understand. And jamming all of the facts in is not actually going to help them understand. So anyway, it's an impossible process, but it's one that is really important to storytelling.
Just kind of picking up on like the audience focused side of it, because I think too often journalism thinks of itself as like the product is the final outcome. Like we put our story out in the world, and if the audience chooses to engage, then they choose, or if they don't, then they don't. And I like how you're thinking about what you want your audience to take away. How much does that factor into kind of like the topics you choose and how you're explaining them?
Other than my curiosity, which sort of got me into the game, the audience is everything. And I say this all the time. Like this is a mantra in our company, audience first.
I hear traditional journalists complaining about the attention span, that people, they just want to watch short stuff and they don't have any attention span anymore. I think that's not really what changed. What changed is the consideration span. I don't stick around. If I see a video on my For You page, if I don't understand in the first minute, what is it about and how does it affect my life and why should I care and what's my value, then I'm not going to invest. Yeah, it sounds ridiculous, but I'm not going to invest 30 seconds or a minute. I'm just going to keep scrolling.
We also spoke to Karen Howe and our very own Lighthouse reporter, Gabriel Geiger, about how to hold AI companies accountable.
I do want to dispel the notion that AI reporting is like only tech reporting or only meant for people with some kind of technical background. I think that's absolutely not true. There are so many AI stories right now that just intersect every possible beat. Like if you're covering healthcare, if you're covering the environment, if you're covering politics, AI has impacted your world. And you don't need to know anything about the technicalities of how a deep learning model works to know that there are absolutely ginormous data centers now popping up in different places and that that's going to have ripple effects on the environment. And you don't need to know anything about the technicalities to also know that deep fakes are exacerbating the misinformation issue, and that could have ripple effects both on women in terms of gender-based violence and also on politicians, particularly the intersection of female politicians. So I think to get started with AI reporting, the first is to maybe start exploring, based on the current topic that you're covering right now, how is AI intersecting that topic? And start talking with experts that are at that intersection and explore like what kinds of impacts are they starting to see? What kinds of stories do they think are being undercovered?
Early on in the season, we chatted to Timothy Large, who runs IJ4EU, about what makes a good funding proposal.
So I like to tell people to think of jury members as types of dog, just to hammer home the point that just as different breeds of dogs have identifiable characteristics, different breeds of jury members have certain things that they like or that make them tick. And you really want to make sure your application appeals to all possible jury members. So any dog you might have slobbering over your application. So just to give you an example of what I mean, you can pretty much be sure that every jury will at least have one Rottweiler on the panel. And this is the jury member who dominates the meeting, takes delight in ripping your ideas to shreds. They tend to be kind of the alpha dogs in the room. But they're actually very good jury members because they really care passionately about great stories and having them see the light of day. So you need to make sure that your application pleases the Rottweiler by throwing them a juicy bone.
And in our latest episode, we also spoke to Cynthia Gishiri, a journalist at Africa Uncensored in Kenya, who worked with us on an award-winning investigation called Poison PR, and Mazen Sidahmed, one of the co-founders of Documented, a newsroom that was designed to serve immigrant communities in New York City. We talked to them about how journalism can empower communities who are directly affected by the issues they're reporting on.
Even as I was asking questions, at the end of the interviews, they would ask me, what is wrong with this pesticide? Is there something wrong? Is there something we should be aware about? I realize these are things that even these sales agents and self-proclaimed extension officers have not been telling them. So they have just been buying a product in the guise of saving the cost of weeding, but they do not know the dangers they face later on in life. That kind of changed, and it also changed even how we were packaging the story.
The conceit and the way that I was taught to do journalism is really built around an idea that what is news, what is considered to be a news story, is defined as an objective truth, that you as a journalist either have good news judgment or you have bad news judgment. But what we consider to be news and what we consider to be important is actually often filtered down through a lens of a very specific type of reader. That we've actually been taught that what is important and what is news is issues that are really relevant to a often affluent, highly educated, politically connected class of people. The things that they're interested in are the most important news stories of the day. And that if you're writing for that class, then that's how you make your name as a journalist, because that's how most news organizations have structured their business, is really around serving that small subset of people.
We hope you enjoyed some of our Season 3 highlights. You can find all these episodes on our website, which is lighthousereports.com/backlight, or listen wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for listening. See you around at the conference.